Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Israel claims new airstrike on a Gaza refugee camp kills second Hamas leader as first civilian evacuees leave Gaza. Britain hosts Global AI Summit. Indian Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar to participate in discussions on establishing collaborative framework for artificial intelligence later today. On the second day of a Sri Lankan visit, Indian FM Nirmala Sitharaman to attend India-Sri Lanka Business Summit, MOU for solar electrification of religious places in Sri Lanka under Indian assistance to be signed. Pakistan starts rounding up undocumented foreigners, mostly Afghans, had set up a midnight November 1st deadline for them to leave or face expulsion. And in sports, India will take on Sri Lanka in the ICC World Cup match today in Mumbai. And moving on, India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is on a three-day visit to Sri Lanka, and we'll tell you the details a little later. And moving on, as Israel-Hamas conflict rages on, another Hamas leader was killed in second strike by Israel on Wednesday at the Gaza's Jabalia refugee camp in 2 days. The Israeli military said that its fighter jet struck a Hamas command and control complex in Jabalia, killing the head of Hamas anti-tank missile unit in Gaza. The Israeli military also said that one of its soldiers was killed in Gaza on Wednesday, while 15 were killed on Tuesday. To combat terrorism in the besieged enclave, Israeli forces continue to bombard Gaza in its campaign to wipe out Hamas. This comes as more foreigners prepare to leave Gaza on Thursday. At least 320 foreign passport holders and dozens of severely injured Gazans left the Palestinian enclave through the Rafah crossing into Egypt on Wednesday. This was the first batch of the civilian evacuees to benefit from a deal mediated by Qatar. Under the deal brokered between Egypt, Israel and Hamas, 81 wounded people and an initial list of 500 foreign passport holders were expected to be allowed out of the Gaza Strip in the coming days, though there is no timeline for how long it will remain open for evacuation. And US President Joe Biden has welcomed a safe passage of Americans from Gaza, noting that the recent evacuations are the result of intense and urgent American diplomacy with their partners in the region.
Today, thanks to concerted American leadership, we're in a situation where safe passage for wounded Palestinians and foreign nationals to exit Gaza has started. The American citizens are able to exit today as part of the first group of probably over 1,000. We'll see more of this process going on in the coming days. We're working nonstop to get Americans out of Gaza as soon and as safely as possible.
And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is visiting Israel again in less than a month. He plans to meet Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, on Friday to voice solidarity, but also to reassert the need to minimize Palestinian civilian casualties. Blinken will also stop in Jordan, where he will underscore the importance of protecting civilian lives and reiterate U.S. commitment to ensure Palestinians are not forcibly displaced from Gaza. Blinken will pursue talks led by Egypt and Qatar on securing the release of all the hostages held by Hamas. Meanwhile, the United Nations Human Rights Office said on Wednesday it was concerned that airstrikes on Gaza's Jabalia refugee camp could amount to war crimes. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights wrote on X, given the high number of civilian casualties and the scale of destruction following Israeli airstrikes on Jabalia refugee camp, we have serious concerns that these are disproportionate attacks that could amount to war crimes. Meanwhile, Israeli President Isaac Herzog, in an address on Wednesday, exhorted his fellow citizens to stand united and steadfast as his country waged a military campaign against terrorism.
The enemy seeks to kindle hatred between us, between Jewish citizens and Arab citizens. We have to fight back against this without compromise and single-mindedly. We have to reject every urge towards hatred and racism towards different groups among us. To recall the dozens of Arab citizens who paid with their lives, those at home and those in battle. And the most important is to recall the responsibility and the mutual respect that exemplifies the Arab community in Israel.
And as China assumed the Security Council's presidency in November, Beijing's ambassador to the UN in a press conference said that resolving the Israel-Palestinian question is a top priority. He further said that China will make efforts towards a ceasefire in Gaza and seek to de-escalate tensions in the region. China also reiterated its support for a two-state solution.
The top priority for our presidency and also for the Security Council as a whole currently is to tackle the Israel-Palestinian question, namely the Gaza conflict, which is going on in the Middle East. For the presidency, what we will continue to work is to really to make further efforts to make sure that the Council can play a responsible and meaningful role in particularly calling for ceasefire, protecting the civilians, and avoiding or preventing the further deterioration of the tension and also further humanitarian catastrophes. And the Council has been working on a draft resolution for quite a while.
Well, moving on, the impact that artificial intelligence could have on our lives will continue to be discussed at a global forum in the UK later today. A new agreement has been signed by 28 countries, promising closer international collaboration to ensure the safe future development of AI. From the UK, John Beaver reports.
AI is being widely used already, everything from social media to fraud detection in banking. We're also seeing it with things like picture and video editing, as well as, of course, as ChatGPT. Progress is rapid. A few years ago, AI was a concept rather than a reality. This conference is viewed by some as the world trying to catch up, to try and look at what the future issues might be and to get ahead of them. It's taking place here at Bletchley Park with leaders in AI invited, including Elon Musk, who's called for a third-party referee to stop AI getting out of hand. The so-called Bletchley Declaration is stopping short of that regulation, but has been signed by 28 countries and has recognised the potential for serious, even catastrophic harm, either deliberate or unintentional, that could be caused by AI and the global effort needed to counter that. Politicians from the developing world have been represented here as well, many of them urging those gathered at the summit to recognise the positive impact AI could have on the developing world and that those impacts have to be accessible to all. John Beaver, Bletchley Park in the UK, reporting for DD India.
Meanwhile, India says the future of artificial intelligence needs to be shaped by countries coming together for the collective good. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, the Minister of State for Electronics and Information Technology, says governments don't have to choose between innovation and regulation, but trust is essential. Rajiv Chandrasekhar speaks with DD India's Julia Chapman on what India hopes to achieve from the event.
We've heard a lot today about the need to balance innovation with regulation. Where does India stand on that?
No, I don't think this is a binary that we need to choose between innovation and regulation. Our Prime Minister in our country is very clearly invested in acknowledging that governments or democratically elected countries like ours have a primary duty to the safety and trust of our citizens, whether that's law and order in the real world or safety and trust on the internet and vis-a-vis these new technologies. So we will certainly keep safety and trust of our citizens as our goal, and we will ensure that any platform, AI or otherwise, are accountable for any harm that the platform causes to our citizens.
And when it comes to protecting citizens, do you believe that that is more of a national project, or should there be international regulation?
Look, we must also accept that the internet, the way the world of tech today exists, there are no borders. And so even if I in India have these great laws and great regulations, the crime or the harm can be perpetrated in another jurisdiction. The victim could be in India or vice versa. And the actual impact of the crime could be in a third jurisdiction. So I think the very nature of the ubiquitousness of the internet, and therefore of tech platforms on the internet, including AI, but not limited to AI, require countries to wake up to the fact that however outstanding the country is in terms of its own laws, that they will not be able to survive or succeed unless the corresponding other economies or the countries mirror their approach towards regulating the internet and regulating AI.
And with that in mind, what do you make of China's involvement in this summit?
Look, I think there's no disputing the fact that China is a major presence in tech, a major presence in AI. They have their ambitions. As long as countries, big or small, come onto the table and accept these basic principles, that at the end of the day, the future of tech is not going to look like any one country dominating it and sort of giving it out as if it was some kind of a favor. Rather, it should be from ground up designed to be an effort where every country, big or small, the global south or the developed nations and their people can enjoy the benefits of these technologies. So this is our philosophy. This is our Prime Minister has said this during the G20, that the world is one family. Our own conduct about DPIs, the digital public infrastructure, is that one that says that innovation should be accessible even to the global south.
And Donald Trump's son testified at a New York civil fraud trial, accusing the former U.S. president and his family businesses of inflating asset values. Trump Jr. has told the court in New York that he was not directly involved in preparing the so-called statements, which state prosecutors say were fraudulently inflated. DD India's Jody Jacobs reports from New York.
In a brief appearance on Wednesday, the first of the adult Trump children to testify in the matter, Donald Trump Jr. said he had little to do with the financial practices of the organization. He said he and his brother Eric took over the management of the company when their father assumed the presidency back in 2017, and maintains he had little involvement in financial matters. This particular lawsuit by New York Attorney General Letitia James accuses the former president and his two sons of inflating their assets by billions of dollars to secure better loan terms. It's just one of the many trials the former president faces as he campaigns to retake the White House. There's a lot at stake in this trial: $250 million in damages and a possible ban on the iconic Trump organization from operating in New York. Donald Trump has denied any wrongdoing and has repeatedly accused both the Attorney General and the judge of political bias. The former president was not in court on Wednesday, but he is set to testify on Monday. His other son, Eric Trump, is also expected to testify this week, as well as Ivanka Trump. Jody Jacobs in New York, reporting for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Amid tensions between the United States and China in the Indo-Pacific region, Antony Blinken and Lloyd Austin to visit India this month. EM Dr. S. Jaishankar meets Indian diaspora in Portugal, urges Indian community to contribute to the Golden Jubilee celebrations of India-Portugal diplomatic ties. Air quality causes alarm among the residents of India's Delhi as pollution levels increase.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such changemakers.
Watch Changemakers on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on the second day of a visit to Sri Lanka, Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will attend the commemoration of the bicentennial anniversary of the arrival of India origin Tamils in Sri Lanka. She will also address the India-Sri Lanka Business Summit. The minister will oversee signing of the MOU for solar electrification of religious places in Sri Lanka under Indian assistance, along with the inauguration of 2 new branches of State Bank of India. Earlier on the first day of a visit, Sitharaman paid obeisance at the Sri Dalada Maligawa temple at Kandy. Sitharaman is on a 3-day visit to Sri Lanka. India and Sri Lanka have concluded the 12th round of talks on the Economic and Technology Cooperation Agreement in Colombo, Sri Lanka. The negotiations spanning from the 30th October to 1st November 2023 marked a significant step in revitalizing the bilateral economic relationship. Well, we have Dr. Ahmed Moeen Faruqi, who joins us from Colombo for more. Faruqi, the 12th round of talks on the Economic and Technology Cooperation Agreement have just concluded. Can you tell us what has transpired there?
Yes, primarily speaking, the Economic and Technological Cooperation Agreement had been something which both the countries had been looking forward to. Ever since the 2016, when the Sri Lankan Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, had announced that they would look forward to further negotiations and finalizing it soon. But in between, due to various reasons, it had been the discussions had been stopped. There had been several discussions which had started earlier. And this year we saw the 12th rounds, which happened and concluded just yesterday. Out of which so far about 9 decisions, crucial decisions and issues have been decided to be resolved. And those have been dropped from the further negotiations and discussions. However, the other issues will continue to be discussed and revisited whenever any need arises. And meanwhile, both sides and the delegations will continue the discussions whenever there is any possibility of further revisiting. However, this ECHCA is something which has been looked forward by both the sides since quite some time, and this will give a further strength to the economic and trade cooperation between the two countries. As such, India is the largest bilateral trading partner of Sri Lanka. Till 2021, it had been 22 and 20 years due to various issues such as the economic crisis. The trade has quite slumped as of now. However, with ECHCA coming back into the play, there is a possibility that the trade will further boom between the two countries.
Right, Faruqi. Today is the second day of the visit. Can you tell us what else is lined up for today?
You see, the Indian banking presence is something which India would look forward to further boost, and inauguration of 2 branches of SBI is something that is on the cards. However, the finance minister will be addressing at the NAM 200, that's the commemoration of 200 years of Indian origin Tamils arrival into Sri Lanka. These Indian origin Tamils have been working as plantation workers, and they have had very bad situations which right from the time the independence had taken place in Sri Lanka. India had been taking a lot of interest in ensuring that they get dignity of life through decent living conditions and healthcare, as well as education sector reforms. India had been providing something like an assistance with regard to getting the healthcare sector beefed up, especially in the plantation areas. India has had a Decoya hospital. India has had a 100-bedded Wavonia hospital as well. So India has been helping out the plantation sector. And now these Indian origin Tamils, this will be a crucial landmark for them, that they have completed 200 years as being part of Sri Lankan economy as well as the society. They are the reason why Sri Lankan tea, the Ceylon tea, has become an international brand. So this is a very significant moment for the Indian origin Tamils as well as Indians who have been living in Sri Lanka. Apart from this, the finance minister will be addressing the India-Sri Lanka Business Summit later today in the evening. So that will be focusing primarily on connectivity. You know, connectivity has been the buzzword ever since the connectivities between the two countries had resumed. Chennai to Jaffna, the flights had resumed last year. We saw this year cruise between the two countries, which had started earlier in July. We also saw ferry services that was inaugurated by the Indian side from Nagapattinam till Kankisanturai. So these connectivity modalities will be further strengthened and improved, and this is where the discussion on connectivity will further take forward the dialogue in the two countries.
Right, Farooqi. Also, a lot of MOUs are to be signed, and one, the most important, is about the solar electrification of religious places in Sri Lanka. Can you tell us about its impact?
You see, India has been a champion with regard to adopting of greener and cleaner fuel. India has had wind power plants which have been already put in place in Mannar and in various other places as well. India has also been working on green hydrogen. Now, the solar electrification of religious places will ensure that there will be self-sustained kind of energy production at most of these religious places which have had connection between the people of both the countries. So around 82.4 crore Indian rupees would be provided as an assistance in this project, which will help providing solar electrification to these locations.
Right, Farooqi. Thank you so much for that update from Colombo. And moving on, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin will meet with their External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and Defense Minister Rajnath Singh later this month in New Delhi. The U.S. State Department on Wednesday said that they will discuss concerns and developments in the Indo-Pacific. The meeting comes amid tensions between the United States and China in the Indo-Pacific region. And India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, addressed the Indian community in Portugal. Dr. Jaishankar was accompanied by Portugal's Foreign Minister, João Craveno. In his address, EAM highlighted Portugal's contribution in promoting closer India-EU ties and also urged the Indian community to contribute to the 50th anniversary celebrations of India-Portugal diplomatic ties. And India and UAE discusses friendship ties and the comprehensive strategic partnership between the two countries and the various opportunities for cooperation. It abounds in all fields, especially education. Indian Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan met Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Chairman of the Education of UAE. The key agenda of the meeting included exploring opportunities for collaborations with a particular emphasis on the realm of education, where proactive initiatives emerged as a result, including the plans to establish a branch of the prestigious Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, right in the heart of Abu Dhabi. This high-profile meeting marks another significant chapter in the evolving partnership between these two nations. And in UAE, an event was held on Wednesday showcasing cultural performances and an impressive painting exhibition by artists from Indian state of Odisha. The event highlighted the community's talent and emphasizing India's commitment to its global diaspora. Indian Minister Dharmendra Pradhan, on a visit to UAE, was also welcomed by the Oriya community. And the government's e-marketplace CEO on Wednesday held a press conference in New Delhi detailing the expansion of services that this platform has undertaken. The CEO also spoke about onboarding specialized services through this platform. He also showcased the growth in the service sector. DD India's Debyendu Mundal spoke to the CEO to get more insights. Take a listen.
I'm joined by the CEO of GM. Welcome to Doordarshan, sir. So what are the services that you will be offering through and you have been offering, and what has been the addition in the last couple of years and how has the response been?
Services came in 2 years after inception of GEM. So in 1920, we did a modest service procurement, primarily for manpower hiring and vehicle hiring, the traditional ones. But then in the last 4 years, the growth has been phenomenal. And today I can very proudly say that any service required by the government is today available on GEM. Be it a specialized service, be it a very technical service, be it a financial service, it is all available on GEM. If we talk of figures, in the first year when services were introduced, we did procurement of about 3,000 crore, which was just about 13% of our total procurement. In the current year, we will touch about 1,50,000 crore of service procurement alone, which will be around 50% of our total procurement. So the journey has been phenomenal. Going forward, again, we'll see whether we can delve into niche areas also and provide services for the government.
What are the challenges that you have faced so far with respect to, there are traditional methods of procurement, especially by the state governments. How are you overcoming that?
Initially, the challenge is only regarding the mindset because everybody is scared of a new system. I mean, when the mobile phone came, people could not use it properly. But today it has become a part of our life. So it is how comfortable you get with the system. So one is that mindset, overcoming the mindset. And the second is demonstrating the advantages. So when we go to a state, we tell them that, look, these are the procurements done by you in the last 2 years. And this is the procurement done by a similar government, maybe a neighboring state, on GEM. And you see the advantage. You see that our contracts don't fail. Our contracts are not rejected. Our rates are better. Those advantages, once you show them, then people automatically come on board.
Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to Doordarshan. This is Divyendu Model with camera person Sharda from New Delhi for DD India.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news. The Governor of Reserve Bank of India, Shaktikant Das, unveiled the commemorative coin of 100 rupees in Mumbai on Wednesday. The coin, made of an 80-20 silver alloy, is 44 meters in diameter and weighs 35 grams. Das said this commemorative coin is a testimony to the significant contribution made by Kaivalyadham in promoting yoga backed by scientific research. India's Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, Hardeep Singh Puri, attended Energy Transition Dialogues. The minister had an engaging conversation with the president of the Observer Research Foundation at Energy Transition Dialogues, Sameer Saran, on various aspects of India's journey towards energy sufficiency. They also discussed the evolving global situations of India's green energy transition under leadership of India's PM Modi. Meanwhile, India has achieved the target of 12% blending on 31st of October. UNESCO added 2 Indian cities, Gwalior and Kozhikode, to its Creative Cities network. Gwalior was included in the music category, while Kozhikode made the list in the literature category. The cities were acknowledged for their commitment to utilizing culture and creativity for urban development. The announcement was welcomed by the Indian Prime Minister. Army Chief General Manoj Pandey visited the Siachen base camp and paid obeisance at the War Memorial to mark the sacrifice by 1,186 soldiers in Siachen. General Pandey arrived in Leh on November 1st. At roughly 20,000 feet in the Karakoram range, the Siachen Glacier is renowned as the world's highest militarized zone. During the winters, temperature can plunge below minus 60 degrees Celsius. And Indian Navy bids farewell to Ilyosin 38SD long-range maritime patrol aircraft after 46 years of meritorious service to the nation. The decommissioning ceremony of the IL-38 squadron, commissioned in October 1st, 1977. The aircraft, known for its long-range maritime reconnaissance and anti-submarine warfare, has been a force multiplier in the Navy. The squadron's motto, "Victory is my profession," has been upheld. The aircraft also featured in the 2023 Republic Day flypast at New Delhi. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Joe Biden to meet his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping later this month on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in California. Preparations in last leg for opening of Sri Ganesha Temple, the largest Hindu temple in Germany.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world, one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for moving on to the top story. Israel claims a new airstrike on a Gaza refugee camp kills second Hamas leader as first civilian evacuees leave Gaza. Britain hosts Global AI Summit. Indian Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar to participate in discussion of establishing collaborative framework for artificial intelligence later today. On the second day of a Sri Lanka visit, Indian FM Nirmala Sitharaman to attend India-Sri Lanka Business Summit. MOU for solar electrification of religious places in Sri Lanka under Indian assistance to be signed. And in sports, India will take on Sri Lanka in the ICC World Cup match today in Mumbai. And moving on, U.S. President Joe Biden visited a farm in Minnesota to tout his administration's investment in rural America. He announced more than $5 billion in spending, which will go towards adapting farming to help climate change and expanding high-speed internet access. More from DD India's U.S. correspondent Nick Harper.
Well, this may have been an official engagement, but it served the dual purpose of looking a lot like a campaign stop, a way to boost the president's position ahead of next November's election. Announcing new investment, Biden said that his administration was ensuring jobs were not exported overseas and instead created here at home, as well as expanding American export production. Now, the American heartland became the backdrop to champion investment in rural communities, a way to try and win over blue-collar voters. This is a kick-off event for an administration-wide tour of rural communities, with top officials hitting 15 states over the coming weeks, including several of the important swing states. Now, the White House has also been keen to point out that the $5 billion investment announced on Wednesday was, they said, just a fraction of the administration's overall support for rural communities. They mentioned $11 billion to bring clean energy to rural communities, as well as $90 billion spent on expanding access to high-speed internet. It's certainly a shift for the president, focusing on a firmly domestic agenda after 3 weeks of intense attention on the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Well, also, Joe Biden is expected to meet his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping later this month. The White House says the leaders of the world's two largest economies have agreed in principle to meet on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in California. DD India's correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
Well, the White House has said that President Biden is expected to have a tough conversation with President Xi, saying that the intense competition between the two countries requires intense diplomacy, and that US policy towards China has not changed. It's said, though, that the logistical details of this meeting were still being put together, but that it was planning for a constructive conversation. The high-stakes face-to-face meeting comes as the White House is navigating major wars in Ukraine and Israel, and that is putting additional pressure on an already strained US-China relationship, which has been damaged in recent years by a trade war that began during the Trump administration. Xi Jinping is Russian President Vladimir Putin's most powerful financial ally, and Chinese support is critical to keeping the Russian war effort alive. Earlier this month, those two leaders met in Beijing to discuss how to deepen their ties, and this relationship is a major concern for the White House. President Biden has frequently framed the battle between democracy and autocracy as central to his presidency. Other issues that are likely to be on the agenda when they meet include trade, the economy, and human rights concerns. This face-to-face meeting follows others between high-level American officials like Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, as well as the head of the CIA, the National Security Advisor, and the Commerce Secretary, and John Kerry, who is the Special Envoy on Climate, one of the few areas where the two countries are trying to find common ground. Kate Fisher in Washington, reporting for DD India.
And the U.S. House of Representatives failed to gain majority to expel Republican lawmaker George Santos as less than two-thirds votes were cast in support of the decision. Expulsion of a lawmaker requires a vote by two-thirds of the chamber. The 35-year-old lawmaker has pleaded not guilty to charges accusing him of crimes, including laundering funds for his personal expenses and so on. In another instance, the House, in a bipartisan 222 for 186 vote, defeated a resolution to censure U.S. Democratic Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib after she spoke at a rally that called for a ceasefire in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And thousands of migrants gathered in southern Mexico on Wednesday, calling for passage through the country to reach its northern border with the United States. Traveling with families, migrants gathered in the town of Uxtla in Chiapas state for break ahead of the journey towards north. Having lost everything during the Eta and Iota hurricanes in 2020, the poverty and insecurity in their home countries that forced them to migrate. This year has seen record numbers crossing the Darien Gap region, connecting Panama and Colombia. Moving on, a Russian drone attack set ablaze the Kremenchuk oil refinery in central Ukraine. The fire at the Kremenchuk refinery was quickly put out. The extent of the damage was not clear. It also knocked out power supply in 3 villages. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces had repelled Russian attacks in frontline sectors in the east and northeast. Ukraine's Air Force said air defenses shot down 18 of 20 drones in a missile fired by Russia overnight. Well, Australian police have arrested a 49-year-old woman over the deaths of 3 elderly people who allegedly consumed poisonous mushrooms at a lunch hosted by her. Victoria State Police are using technology detector dogs to search a house which is equipped to detect small electronic devices. The mysterious deaths have gripped Australia. Deaths from consuming mushrooms are relatively rare in the country, which has several species, including the death cap mushroom, that are dangerous enough to poison and kill a human. And in Pakistan, police dismantled mud houses in an Afghan colony on the outskirts of Islamabad late on Wednesday. All this is happening as deadline for undocumented refugees to leave or face expulsion ended on the 1st of November midnight. Pakistan cited security reasons, brushing off calls for reconsideration from the United Nations rights groups and Western embassies. Residents of the demolished Afghan colony complained that they had not been given enough time. They had been given 2 weeks to clear out. Some of those ordered to leave have spent decades in Pakistan. The Interior Ministry of Pakistan said more than 140,000 people had already voluntarily left after days. Major roads out of the country were jammed. The United Nations Refugee Agency has been warning that Pakistan's planned expulsion of more than 1 million undocumented foreign nationals risks triggering a human rights catastrophe.
Keeping in view the situation in Afghanistan, we are calling upon the government to continue to provide protection and safety to all those people who are vulnerable and who are living in Pakistan. As you know that Afghanistan is going through a severe humanitarian challenges, including human rights challenges for women and girls. And the government of Pakistan is implementing this plan, and we believe that such plans will have serious implications for all those who have been displaced and who may face serious protection risk upon their return. So we are appealing the government to come up with a comprehensive, sustainable mechanism to manage and register all these people who need international protection in Pakistan.
And in weather updates, Storm Ciarán crashed Penzance on the promenade, causing high waves to wash over the coastal wall. Satellite footage indicates Storm Ciarán is approaching, expected to bring strong winds and heavy rain. The UK's National Weather Service predicts it will cross the southern half of the UK with gusts of 70 to 80 mph and storms exceeding 85 mph. Meanwhile, a 4-star hotel in hurricane-ravaged Acapulco has been transformed into a communal kitchen for needy neighbors who have been left without food and water in the aftermath of the natural disaster. Acamar Hotel, one of many destroyed by Otis, is distributing food and supplies to the city's poorest residents. The hurricane, which hit Acapulco with winds of 165 meters per hour, caused flooding, roof damage and severe communication, leaving the 900,000 population desperate for food and water. And Beijing, the capital of China, is under dense layer of smog cover. The previous day, authorities issued their highest warnings alerts for fog and haze, alerting the public to the possibility of visibility as low as 50 meters. Beijing plans to implement traffic control measures if it triggers its highest air pollution warning, citing weak cold air currents from the North Pole, industrial activities, heavy trucking and crop fires as contributing factors. Moving on, the northern Queensland state of Australia is experiencing bushfires that have damaged hundreds of homes and claimed the lives of 2 individuals. Queensland residents were ordered to evacuate their homes on Wednesday as bushfires burned out of control, while firefighters, including those flown in from across the country and from neighbouring New Zealand, battled the blaze. The early start of the fire season comes as Australia recorded its driest September, and the Weather Bureau predicts hot weather and below average rainfall. More than 7,500 hectares are burning out of control in the neighbouring state of New South Wales. Also, the residents of India's Delhi are grappling with deteriorating air quality due to increasing pollution levels. According to the System of Air Quality and Weather Forecasting and Research, India's Delhi overall AQI on Thursday stood at 343, placing it in the very poor category. The city's air quality has been consistently rated as very poor for the past 6 days. The national capital and its neighbouring regions have been shrouded in haze. Certain areas in Delhi have experienced severe pollution, with alarming AQI readings recorded in various locations. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Britain's Queen Camilla visited an animal sanctuary on the second day of a state visit to Kenya. During the visit, she interacted with the kids from a local club and resident women and got gifts from them. Dressed as terrifying Halloween characters, police officially arrested 2 people allegedly engaged in drug dealing in Lima. The suspects were members of the clan Balboa, the gang selling drugs in the neighborhood. Police also seized 1,568 small packets of cocaine and cash in the operation. Natives in Bolivia began the Day of the Dead celebrations by making the traditional children-shaped bread and visiting the loved ones' graves. They believe that the souls return to visit their loved one and to relish what they enjoyed most in life. So relatives prepared the favorite foods and drinks of the dead. And in Berlin, a decade and a half's worth of construction is nearing completion on what will become Germany's largest Hindu temple. The community-led project comes as the Indian diaspora in Germany continues to grow, particularly as Europe's largest economy continues to seek out young Indians to work in strategically important fields like engineering, IT and medicine. DD India correspondent Trent Murray was given an exclusive behind-the-scenes tour of the Sri Ganesha temple as the final preparations are made for its opening now.
The hustle and bustle of the German capital can feel a world away from the spiritual surroundings of the subcontinent, but a dedicated and very determined Indian community has been working to build a home away from home for the city's Hindus.
Our idea was motivation was to involve South, North, West, East all together and make an Indian unity. Not only India and also Singapore and Nepal, Bhutan and Sri Lanka, that we are welcoming them also as a part of our community. But the main thing was interested that we will have a unity of India. India should build a temple because we are living so much years in Germany and we have never built a temple in Germany. That was our idea and our dream also.
15 years worth of craftsmanship, creativity and community have helped transform this plot of land in a suburban park to a place of spiritual reflection. A labour of love spanning different generations, young and old pitching in to turn a long-held dream into a reality. The project has relied on an army of skilled architects and artisans travelling from India each year. But following 5,000-year-old Hindu building specifications has proved challenging in some areas.
They made a complete deities with cement because all Indian temple they will put all with stone manufactured. But we cannot bring all stones here. It is very costly. Then we found an architect that will make complete with cement. It shows like that stone.
Once completed, Sri Ganesha will be Germany's largest Hindu temple, catering for a community that continues to increase in size thanks to the growing economic, political and social ties between New Delhi and Berlin.
Indians, they are hardworking people, they are sincere people, and they gel really well with the society. And that's the reason why the students who come here, they assimilate very well, they start their jobs. Now we also see, Berlin is a startup hub, so a lot of Indians are also coming up with their startup ideas. I've seen many people having their own companies, and that's the reason, people are attracted to this place as well, because this is also, when they come, they have a feeling of home.
Of course, a project of this scale also comes with a sizable price tag. But from day one, leaders here said they didn't want this temple built using credit or debt. Instead, every brick, every tile, every lick of paint has been funded entirely through private donations. And to avoid having to telephone the bank to ask for a loan, the temple's leaders say it's been young Indians who have rallied to make sure there were enough resources available.
The youngsters, they also thought that in order to keep that going, in order to give this heritage further to our children, to the next generation, second, third generation, we need to jump in, we need to pitch in. And that's the reason the community has come forward, and in big numbers. So it's money coming from donations, however big or small it is. Temples are always built with donation because it doesn't belong to an individual. It belongs to the community. Even youngsters, students who are scarce on funds, they also come and donate whatever and however they can.
The aim is for Sri Ganesha to be completed in the first quarter of next year. Working closely with the Indian Embassy, the opening will mark a major milestone for the men, women and children that make up the country's vibrant Indian community, laying the foundations, quite literally, for future generations to come together and celebrate the gods that lie at the heart of the world's oldest religion. Trent Murray for DD India, Berlin.
Welcome back, and still to come on DD India News Hour. US Federal Reserve keeps interest rates on hold as it reaches 22-year high. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and on to business news now. Interest rates in the United States are going to remain on hold after the Federal Reserve decided not to raise them from their 22-year high. This is the second time in a row that the country's central bank opted against an increase. Benji High reports that Fed Chair Jerome Powell is not ruling out hikes in the future in a bid to bring down inflation.
No change, a pause again by officials in the nation's capital. Following 11 straight rises from March of last year, interest rates will stay between 5.25% and 5.5%, where they've been since July 2023. the Federal Open Market Committee, essentially waiting to see if its strategy to contain inflation is actually working before it considers tightening monetary policy even more. Its decision, a unanimous one to maintain current rates, coming at a delicate time for the US economy and global financial markets more widely. War in the Middle East, warnings of oil price volatility, and also a recent bond market sell-off, all of these complicating the outlook. These range of uncertainties, as Jerome Powell calls them, means further action could well be warranted if there's new evidence that a fall in prices is in fact stalling. Now, inflation has dropped from a 40-year record of over 9% to just shy of 4%, yet that's still double the bank's 2% target. Inflation's been driven by solid growth, GDP accelerating almost 5% in the third quarter, a strong pace, the Fed says, with consumer spending far more resilient than expected, unemployment historically low too. Policymakers, when they put out a statement on Wednesday, said they recognise that increasing rates down the line, were they to choose that path, would likely weigh on economic activity. In other words, it could dampen that economic growth. Benji Haya in Washington for DD India.
And FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried's defense lawyer, attorney Mark Cohen, on Wednesday claims the prosecutors in his fraud trial aimed to portray him as a villain and monster due to insufficient evidence of billions of dollars stolen. Cohen's closing argument came after the prosecution urged to convict Bankman-Fried, argued he stole $8 billion in one of the biggest financial frauds in U.S. history. In all, the jury heard 15 days of testimony. 3 of Bankman-Fried's former close confidants said he directed them to commit crimes, including helping Alameda loot FTX and lying to lenders and investors about the company's finances. And on to sports now. South Africa thrashed New Zealand by 190 runs in ICC Cricket World Cup 2023 in Pune on Wednesday. Fiery centuries from Rassie van der Lussen and Quinton de Kock, followed by a 4-wicket haul from Keshav Maharaj, helped Proteas register their 6th win in the World Cup. Chasing 358, New Zealand kept on losing wickets at regular intervals as Maharaj took 4 while Marco Jansen scalped 3. For New Zealand, Glenn Phillips scored 60 and emerged as the highest scorer. Earlier, Rassie and de Kock scored 133 and 114 runs respectively. This was New Zealand's 3rd consecutive defeat in the ongoing tournament. And India will square off with Sri Lanka in the ICC World Cup match on Thursday in Mumbai. A win will ensure that India leaps into the knockout phase. India has remained undefeated in the tournament, winning all its 6 matches. On the other hand, Sri Lanka has lost 4 out of its 6 matches.
Get ready for an epic showdown as 2 cricketing giants, India and Sri Lanka, lock horns at the iconic Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. This historic venue holds special memories for Indian cricket fans, especially that unforgettable evening on April 2, 2011, when India secured their 2nd ICC Men's ODI World Cup title. And now in 2023, these 2 teams are set to face each other once again in a round-robin match of cricket's biggest event. But the teams enter this contest with vastly different forms. Sri Lanka, the winners of the 1996 edition, have had a challenging journey in this tournament. With just 2 wins and 4 losses in their bag, their most recent defeat was at the hands of the rising Afghanistan team.
On paper and considering their current form, it seems that Kusal Mendes and his men might be in for a tough battle when they go up against the unbeaten Team India on Thursday. This marks the first encounter between these Asian cricketing giants since India's dominant 10-wicket victory in the Asia Cup Summit clash. In the ODI World Cup, they have crossed paths 9 times, and their record stands at a fairly even 4 wins each, with 1 match ending without a result.
Meanwhile, Team India is riding a wave of success. They are on a 6-match winning streak in this World Cup and have displayed exceptional performance in both batting and bowling departments. With just 3 group stage games left and the need to leapfrog 3 other teams to secure a place in the top 4, it seems unlikely that the Sri Lankans will advance to the knockout stages.
But in this game of uncertainties, players like Sadira and Dilshan Madhushankar are having excellent campaigns and might aim to hand the world #1 side their first defeat in the competition.
Men in blue are determined to continue their winning streak and are just one win away from securing their place in the Final Four. So come Thursday, get ready for this thrilling encounter at the Wankhede Stadium as these two cricketing giants battle it out on the same hallowed ground where history was made in 2011. Will India keep their winning juggernaut going, or will Sri Lanka pull off a miracle? It's a clash you don't want to miss. With camera person Bhim, this is Taposh Bhattacharya for DD India from Wankhede Stadium, Mumbai.
And in the ongoing World Cup, India's pace sensation Mohammad Shami has been nothing short of spectacular. Watch this special report by correspondent Taposh Bhattacharya from Wankhede Stadium.
In the ongoing World Cup, India's pace sensation Mohammad Shami has been nothing short of spectacular. 9 wickets, an economy rate of 4.47 and an average of 8.44. No other bowler in this World Cup has set of numbers that comes even close. What's more even remarkable is that Shami wasn't in the final 11. In fact, he was not even in the initial 11, but got his chance due to Hardik Pandya's injury. Since then, he has been unstoppable and is now a crucial part of the team. In a World Cup matches, Shami is a force to be reckoned with, boasting of an astounding 40 wickets in just 13 innings with an average of 14.07. Shami is now on the verge of making history as he is only 4 wickets away from equaling the legendary Zahir Khan and Javagal Srinath as the joint highest wicket taker in the World Cup history. Both former cricketers have picked up 44 wickets each during their respective World Cup careers. Zahir Khan achieved this feat in just 23 matches while Javagal Srinath took 34 matches. Keep an eye on Mohammad Shami as he aims to rewrite World Cup record and continue to be a key player for Team India. The world is watching as Shami sprints towards cricketing history. I'm Taposh Bhattacharya signing off with my camera person Bhim from Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai for DD India.
Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.